There's a place in the Peruvian desert where the earth has been carved with secrets. So massive, they can only be seen from the sky. Perfectly straight lines stretching for miles, enormous animals etched into the ground, a monkey, a spider, a strange figure known only as the astronaut. No one knows exactly who made them, or why, or how. But one thing is certain. These weren't meant to be seen from the ground. So who were they made for? Aliens? Gods? Or something even stranger? Stay with us, because what you're about to learn about the Nazca Lines will change the way you see ancient history forever. Stretching across the arid plains of southern Peru lies one of the world's greatest enigmas. Massive geoglyphs carved into the desert floor, known as the Nazca Lines. These figures, some as large as skyscrapers, include animals, plants, and geometric patterns so precise they could easily be mistaken for modern aerial art. But they're not. These lines were made more than 1,500 years ago, long before airplanes, satellites, or drones could reveal their full design. And yet, that's the first mystery. The Nazca people, who lived in the region between 200 BCE and 600 CE, had no way to see their own creations from above. The images are so vast and only truly visible from hundreds of meters in the sky. How could they create something so massive, so precise, and so deliberate, without ever seeing the full picture themselves? There are more than 800 straight lines, 300 geometric shapes, and around 70 figures of animals and plants, like a hummingbird, monkey, spider, or even what looks like a humanoid with large eyes. Some figures stretch over 300 meters long, carved by simply removing the top layer of reddish pebbles to reveal the lighter ground beneath. The dry, windless climate has preserved them almost perfectly for centuries. But why? Why go through so much effort to create images that no one at the time could even view in full? Why these specific animals and patterns? Even today, with satellites and drone footage, scientists are still puzzled, not by how well the lines are preserved, but by their purpose. What message were the Nazca people trying to send? And more importantly, who was meant to receive it? As soon as the Nazca Lines were discovered from the air in the 1920s, speculation exploded. Some saw intricate art. Others saw something far more mysterious. Among the most controversial theories, that the Nazca Lines were not meant for human eyes at all. One of the earliest and boldest suggestions came from Erich von Däniken, a Swiss author famous for popularizing the ancient astronaut theory. He proposed that the Nazca Lines were runways for alien spacecraft, designed to guide extraterrestrial visitors to Earth thousands of years ago. According to von Däniken, the wide, flat surfaces and long, perfectly straight paths resemble airstrips, especially when seen from above. Others have suggested the figures were messages to beings in the sky, gods, deities, or something else entirely. After all, why create images that only make sense from high above if the intended audience wasn't grounded on Earth? Still more theories claim the lines were part of a massive celestial map, aligning with the stars, planets, and solstices. Some believe the figures represent constellations, or are used to mark the path of celestial bodies. The hummingbird may point toward the summer solstice. The spider may relate to rainfall. These interpretations blur the line between art, astronomy, and ritual. And then there's the theory of the giant humanoid figure, often called the astronaut by locals. It has big, round eyes and an oddly shaped head. Some say it resembles a being in a helmet, or perhaps an alien visitor recorded in stone. Who is this being supposed to be? A god? A watcher? Or something else entirely? Of course, archaeologists have long criticized these theories as speculative and unsupported by evidence. But one thing is undeniable. The Nazca Lines are unlike anything else on Earth. They stir the imagination, provoke mystery, and continue to defy easy explanation. If the Nazca Lines weren't made for aliens or gods, then what kind of tools or knowledge could ancient humans possibly have used to create them? That's where the mystery deepens. How did a civilization without airplanes, satellites, or even high hills manage to draw such precise, massive shapes, only visible from the sky? Let's start with the basics. The lines are etched into the desert floor by removing the reddish topsoil and revealing the lighter layer beneath. This sounds simple enough, but drawing a perfectly straight line several kilometers long, or keeping proportions accurate for a giant hummingbird or monkey without any aerial view, that's an entirely different story. Some researchers believe the Nazca might have used simple but effective tools, such as stakes and ropes, to map out the geoglyphs from the ground. By placing stakes at intervals and using rope to ensure straight lines and curves, they could have gradually built the designs on a massive scale. In fact, experimental archaeologists have successfully recreated smaller versions of the figures using only tools that would have been available to the Nazca. But that doesn't answer everything. Many of the lines are incredibly accurate over long distances, and some figures are so well proportioned they seem impossible without a higher perspective. That's why some believe the Nazca had lost knowledge, perhaps a form of geometry or engineering that we don't give them credit for. Could they have had balloon technology to rise above the desert floor? One fringe theory suggests the Nazca may have created hot air balloons made of cotton and llama skin, giving them a brief glimpse of their own work from above. Then there's the idea of encoded messages or mathematical principles hidden in the lines. Some researchers have noticed that certain figures, especially the spirals and trapezoids, seem to align with mathematical patterns or sacred geometry. Were the Nazca experimenting with ideas that wouldn't be formally described until thousands of years later? Another layer to the mystery lies in how long the lines have lasted. Despite their age, many are still perfectly visible today. The arid climate of the Nazca Desert has preserved them incredibly well. But the fact that these figures have remained undisturbed for over 1,000 years only deepens their mystique. It's as if they were designed to survive time itself. So we're left with an uncomfortable truth. Either the Nazca had far more advanced knowledge than we imagine for a pre-industrial society, or we're still missing a key piece of the puzzle. Something in their worldview, culture, or science, now long forgotten, may explain how and why they made these lines. But until we find that piece, the Nazca Lines remain not only a feat of ancient design, but a symbol of lost human potential, or something beyond it. For decades, the Nazca Lines were shrouded in mystery, and while many theories still swirl around them, scientists now believe they've uncovered at least one part of the puzzle: how these massive geoglyphs were actually constructed. The process, surprisingly, may not have required advanced tools or aerial help at all. The desert where the lines lie has a unique geological structure. The top layer is a reddish-brown gravel oxidized by the sun. Just beneath it is a lighter, almost white layer of soil made of lime-rich sand and clay. By removing the darker stones, the Nazca could create long-lasting contrast on the pale surface beneath. But how did they do this on such a massive scale, with some lines stretching over 10 kilometers and figures as large as a modern skyscraper? Archaeologists now think the Nazca used simple surveying techniques. They likely used wooden stakes, many of which were actually found embedded in the soil at the ends of some lines. These stakes were probably connected by ropes to ensure straight, measured paths. For curved shapes and complex figures, a kind of grid system might have been used, similar to how modern artists enlarge small drawings. In fact, experiments in the early 2000s showed that a team of people using only technology available to the Nazca, no drones, no modern math, no GPS, could recreate a geoglyph in just a few days. That includes scaling up a drawing, marking it on the ground, and clearing the dark stones to expose the lighter soil. But does that make the mystery any less impressive? Not really. If anything, it shows that the Nazca were incredibly organized, patient, and skilled, capable of executing enormous designs without ever seeing the final product from above. Some researchers have even suggested the process of making the lines was ritualistic, that it wasn't just about the final image, but the act of walking the lines, carving the desert, leaving a permanent trace across the earth. A kind of ceremonial engineering, combining devotion, astronomy, and artistry. Others argue that the simplicity of the tools shouldn't blind us to the complexity of the intent. The Nazca weren't merely carving pictures, they were sending messages. Whether those messages were to the gods, the stars, or the people yet to come, we still don't know. What's clear is that they didn't need alien help or forgotten technologies to build the lines. They needed something far more human: vision, coordination, and purpose. But the biggest question remains: why did they do it? And that's what we'll explore next. Today, most mainstream archaeologists agree on a general explanation. The Nazca Lines were created between 500 BC and 500 CE by the Nazca culture, and they served religious and ritualistic purposes, often tied to water, agriculture, and cosmic deities. The Nazca lived in one of the driest regions on Earth. Their survival depended on the delicate balance of rainfall from the Andes Mountains and the seasonal rivers that flowed into the desert. So it's no surprise that many of the geoglyphs are believed to be offerings or prayers to the gods for water, fertility, and protection. Several figures, like the hummingbird, the monkey, and the whale, are animals associated with rain and abundance in Nazca mythology. Others, like spirals and zigzag lines, may represent flowing water, underground canals, or sacred paths. Some researchers suggest the lines were part of ceremonial pilgrimages, that people would walk the shapes as part of a spiritual journey, invoking divine favor. Others think they marked astronomical events or celestial alignments, perhaps helping predict rainfall or agricultural cycles. It's a theory that makes a lot of sense. It's grounded in the Nazca's known beliefs and needs. But there are still holes. Why make them so enormous that no human could appreciate their full form from the ground? Why such geometric precision? Perfect lines across miles of rugged terrain, if not meant to be seen from above. And while some alignments with the sun and stars do exist, not all figures fit neatly into this framework. Some shapes seem purely artistic, or symbolic in a way we can't yet decode. Others are too large, too isolated, or too obscure to serve a clear religious or agricultural purpose. Plus, there's the question of why so many different designs were created over centuries, sometimes overlapping, sometimes completely unrelated. Even within the scientific community, there's no single agreed-upon purpose for the lines. Instead, experts now believe the Nazca Lines may have served multiple roles: sacred symbols, ritual pathways, territorial markers, or even early forms of communication. And while the ritual theory is widely accepted, it still leaves us with an uncomfortable truth. We don't know for sure. Which brings us back to the mystery. If the Nazca Lines were a message, then who were they meant for? And what were they trying to say? We've studied the Nazca Lines for nearly a century. We've mapped them, photographed them from planes and satellites, even walked their paths under the scorching Peruvian sun. And yet, they still don't make complete sense. We can explain how they were made, using simple tools, sticks, and ropes. We can guess why they were made, for rituals, for gods, for rain. But something still feels missing. Because when you stand before a giant spider stretching over 150 feet into the desert, or see a humanoid figure staring into the sky with massive eyes, it doesn't feel like just a farming calendar. It feels like something more. Maybe that's why the Nazca Lines continue to fascinate. Because they live in the space between fact and mystery. There's no Rosetta Stone, No ancient tablet explaining their meaning. Just thousands of lines, dozens of symbols, and the silence of the desert. Even modern technology hasn't solved the puzzle. New geoglyphs are still being discovered today, some hidden for centuries beneath the sand. Each new shape raises more questions than answers. Were the lines meant to be seen from the skies by gods? Or something else? Were they a way for the Nazca to communicate with powers beyond understanding? Or are we simply projecting mystery where none exists, unable to accept that something so vast and beautiful could exist without a secret? The truth is, the Nazca Lines are one of the rare things in our world that resist explanation. Not because we haven't looked, but because they may not be meant to be understood in modern terms. They remind us that the past still holds secrets, that even in the age of satellites and AI, some mysteries refuse to be solved. The Nazca Lines remind us of something we often forget, that not every mystery is meant to be solved. Some are meant to be felt, to stir the imagination, to connect us with minds that lived thousands of years before us, and yet, somehow, might not be so different. Maybe that's why these lines still whisper across the sand. If this story fascinated you, leave a comment below. What do you think the Nazca Lines were really for? And if you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more mysteries that challenge everything we think we know.